Okay, so data mining is the second step in data mining. The second step is the actual mining of the input data. So we need to choose the algorithm to use, and some algorithms work with numerical data and some don't, for example. And the algorithms usually allow you to set certain parameters, so you need to think about that. For example, here's Weka again. If you look at here, Explorer. So let's open up a file somewhere. Let's try this. Can I find a file? Maybe data? Nope. Okay, I have to go to desktop and computer and here and go to program files and Weka data. Okay. So if I open up the one that we saw before, I showed you this already, but let's try this. So now, if you want to do, you have to choose which algorithm to use. There it goes again. Let's try this again. So if you want to choose which algorithm to use, so you can see there's so many here. And this one, on the other hand, is ruled out. So some of them are available and some aren't, depending on the kind of data that you're using. So in this case, we were using, so you can see that some of them are grayed out. In this case, we were using, as we just saw, the weather data, weather nominal data. So that's going to preclude certain kinds of algorithms working. Okay? So that's one thing. Another thing I wanted to just quickly show you was the idea of the different forms of data. So again, going back here, going to data, and here we saw this is, if I open this with Notepad, you'll see this is the kind of ARF format, which is kind of a trouble to make, but we can do it fairly easily with newer versions of Weka. Whoops, sorry, you can't see that, can you? Here. Okay, this is the ARF format, and so like whenever you have, and so it allows you to have comments in the file itself, but you have to put these things in front of it, the %sign, and here's the attributes or the variables and so on. So you saw this already. On the other hand, an example of just a CSV file, I'll show you that. So this is what's called a CSV file. Now it's opened in Excel. You can usually open a CSV file in Excel. Here I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 variables. Actually, this is Twitter data. You have the tweet ID, the date, which you can stretch out and see a little more clearly. The username, for example, wine wipes Oz. Text, so you get this text here, location, and so on. So there's these variables up top. And this is called comma separated values files. You can see .csv here. If I open this in, if I open this with Notepad, you can see more clearly the formatting of it. And open it with Notepad here. And you can see that the values are delimited by comma, another comma here for the next value, another one here for the next value, and so on. And so we have all these rows of data, and up here at the top are the variable names. Up here. Okay, so this is called comma separated values. So, and then, so we said we need to choose the algorithm to use. Some algorithms work with numerical data, some don't. The weather data that we just saw was not numerical. Algorithms usually allow you to set certain parameters, so you need to think about that as well. So we're going to see that later, but just quickly, let's see that. So if I choose this and go to classify and choose, let's see, if I choose this one, no, that doesn't. This one, this is so hard to see, I don't know why. This is just my computer that does this. Let me try that again. So here now I've selected the multi-layer perceptron, or the neural. It's also called a neural network. And there, besides just choosing the algorithm and choosing stuff down here, you can also choose a number of so-called parameters. And this gets into the kind of complicated nitty-gritty of this particular algorithm. So you need to understand this particular algorithm to know what these all mean. But once you do understand them, then you can set these in different ways that might make the results better. Okay. So we also have to consider that, and then finally, so-called post-processing of patterns. Now, actually, I'm sorry to present all of this to you now. In a way, I think this is the wrong way to approach this subject. That is, we should talk about these things after we've learned about the basics of data mining. But usually in books, they do this kind of thing first. So I'm following that. But actually, I think it's better to show you what's done instead of making all this kind of broad statements like this. But anyway, I'll just go through this right now. The post-processing stage refers to any further processing of the discovered patterns after the mining, so after you run the algorithm. Post-processing includes pattern evaluation. So how good was it? Did we get 98% accuracy, or did we get 50% accuracy? Pattern selection and pattern interpretation. First, the credibility and significance of the patterns are vital for the purpose of data mining, and hence must be evaluated objectively. So we're going to learn a lot about that. Not just 98% versus 50%, but other things as well. Often not all patterns are of interest, and therefore further selection may be needed. Like I said, this is not so clear at this point what they're talking about. A ranking criteria for interestingness may be deployed in the selection process. It is then important that the credible, significant, and interesting patterns are understood and interpreted correctly. Appropriate visualization of the patterns can assist the interpretation. Okay? And going back to this picture, this and this and this say that this whole process is so-called iterative. That means you go through this, and then you maybe you go through all the steps, and then you choose the data now in a different way because you learned something about it. So now you go and choose the data in a slightly different way. You might change how you prepare it. You might choose a different algorithm. So you sort of go through this process repeatedly. So some software vendors and practitioners have proposed a sort of standardized process for going through all of these steps in data mining. And especially SPSS has proposed this as a kind of industrial standard process for data mining. It's known as the Cross-Industry Standard Process for Data Mining, or CRISP-DM. And it emphasizes that idea of going around in an iterative process. So I guess, what do they say? You start with business understanding, so you don't want to just dive into just taking any old data. You start with some business understanding, then you understand the data, then you prepare the data, then you start doing the modeling. That is the running the algorithms. Then you evaluate, and then you might go back and look at the business processes again, and go through this process again and again and again until you're finally satisfied, and then you'll deploy the results. Okay, so this is called CRISP-DM.